It's Saturday evening. It's time to talk about the very best comic books in the entire world this week. And normally our good friend Drew would be joining us, but he is in Las Vegas, probably selling comic books right now. If you see him in Vegas, definitely let him know that Wes sent you by the table and see if you can get you a copy of Unholy Nightmare #2 preview edition or something cool like that. But the show must go on. And this week, Marvel had a better week than DC, a much better week. And I was kind of looking at it, kind of being excited. And then I realized the two issues that I'm going to talk about from Marvel this week that I'm going to recommend are the closeouts for miniseries. And that's one of my great frustrations with Marvel Comics these days. And one of the reasons I think you're seeing nobody really heavily investing in almost anything that they do. There's no staying power. Back in the day, runs would last hundreds of issues. And now you're lucky if you get 10. The latest example we found out this weekend. In a recent revelation, Zach Davison, the script adapter for Marvel Comics' Ultimate X-Men, alongside creator Peach Momoko, confirmed that the Ultimate Universe line of comics will conclude after 24 issues, marking the end of this alternate realities run. According to a now deleted Blue Sky post, Davison disclosed that the team is currently working on issue 18, with 6 issues remaining, signaling an abrupt close to the series. The co-writer, interpreter, adapter guy for Ultimate X-Men, working with Peach Momoko, lets it out of the bag that apparently the entire Ultimate Universe is ending after just 2 years. Now, I don't think this will be the end. The maker's going to show up, something's going to happen, and then we'll probably get new #1 issues of the Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men following after that, because Marvel does have to reboot everything constantly and get back to a #1 issue. What's the reason to jump on board to any of this stuff if it can't go even 24 issues when you're talking about a major initiative like the Ultimate Universe? And I think a lot of people are enjoying Ultimate Spider-Man, but waiting for the maker to show up, do whatever the maker's going to do so we can actually get on with Ultimate Spider-Man. It feels like it's been in this weird holding pattern, and you're likely not going to get anything really after that. What a major disappointment, and yet another self-inflicted wound by Marvel Comics, and we wonder why sales of Amazing Spider-Man, One World Under Doom, and basically all their other titles are struggling so badly. There's no longevity in any of this stuff, and anytime you do like something, which we'll talk about here, the stuff that I thought was great this week, it almost always ends very, very abruptly. Thankfully, there were some awesome comic books that don't cause quite that much frustration this week, starting out with the indie comic books. Some of the best stuff of the week. G.I. Joe #8, Josh Williamson writing, Andrea Milana on art. We start out with Risk and CoverGirl on a training exercise trying to get the drop on the Baroness. They are able to distract her and kind of win the day as far as the training exercise, but the Baroness is kind of at her wit's end. She needs a weekend out. She's tired of feeling like she's imprisoned in the pit, and she needs permission from Duke to go out, see the world, and do something besides be around the Joes. He reluctantly gives her permission, but unbeknownst to her, there's a little catch to it. In fact, CoverGirl is going to be like her chaperone. They end up going to Paris, and we actually get some really good character moments, character exposition, talking about how they got where they are, kind of relating as characters before we get this really great scene of Major Blood sending in one of his operatives because apparently he's got major beef with the Baroness. There's another smaller subplot involving Clutch and his new truck that he's taking into the pit that I think is very, very exciting, really sets up some awesome stuff there, and more conversations between Destro and Cobra Commander about their knowledge or awareness that Decepticons and Autobots are out there in the Energon universe. This was a very, very good comic book. Definitely my pick for best of the week. Normally, Tom Riley is the artist on this book. Andrea Milana comes in. That was the artist on the Cobra Commander miniseries when Josh Williamson was doing Duke with Tom Riley, and it definitely fits, definitely works. Huge recommend for that one. Had a lot of fun with G.I. Joe #8, another winner for the Energon universe, and it feels like it's every single week we're getting something out of Skybound and Energon. Also going to recommend Battle Beast #2, Robert Kirkman writing, Ryan Otley on art. Speaking of Skybound, Invincible Universe title here. It's like the best thing that you can get from Robert Kirkman. I think a lot of times, because we don't see him write nearly as much as he used to, now that he's more of an executive kind of producer type guy when it comes to comic books, you kind of forget just how violent and frenetic his comic books can be, but also how funny they are. there's really great stuff as far as the chemistry between Battle Beast and his cohorts, specifically the ship and the little half-eaten alien that he saved from the Colossus in the very first issue. The half-eaten alien would like to get a robot body, but Battle Beast is far more interested in finding a worthy foe that might actually bring an end to his life. He finds out the ship is totally screwing over, taking him into deep space, hoping that he can starve to death. And they find out that they might need to get some resupply at this one station because they're going to go back to this little alien's home planet where Colossus's sister, the Juggernaut, has actually taken over the planet, might be a worthy foe. There's like a big gladiatorial tournament that Battle Beast enters, hoping that he might die during the confrontation. Ryan Otley is absolutely on his A game. This thing is so brutal and violent and fun. Just a great comic book. I am not in any way, shape, or form an Invincible expert. I never actually read the original series, but this definitely makes me want to go back into it. Battle Beast is an absolute hoot, and I love the dichotomy of this character, Battle Beast, who hates everybody, that only wants a worthy foe, and he's got this weird little family that absolutely hates him, that are building up around him. They kind of depend on him. And even the little guy at one point's like, hey, doesn't it make you feel better that you help somebody out? He's like, no, not at all. So I'm enjoying that weird comic book there in Battle Beast. Final indie comic book recommendation, Flash Gordon, number 10, Jeremy Adams writing, Tom Durenick on art. We pick up right where issue 9 left off. Flash Gordon has finally saved Dale Arden. They found out that there was an imposter from another multiverse, but things are not looking good. You still have the Imperial Guard coming down on him. Their cohorts that were actually helping them out have their own problems on their spaceship. They can't get back to support them. And then there's this really big reveal regarding Zarkov, who's normally a human in the traditional Flash Gordon type stories, but now he's become a robot. Well, now there's a human and a robot version of him, and they might be the only hope for Flash Gordon, Dale, as well as Volton and the rest of their party that are in the palace as they're trying to shoot themselves out of there. Really cool stuff, really action-packed, frenetic pace of this particular comic book. It definitely grabs you by the collar and pulls you all the way through the book. And eventually they're able to make it out there just in time for Ming to finally return to Mingo and kind of take things over, realizing that something has happened. There's a new piece of equipment there. He decides to turn it off, and we might see another Flash Gordon character returning from that other side of the multiverse. Jeremy Adams continues to kick ass, take names on this Mad Cave book. Definitely check it out. If you have not gotten into Flash Gordon, you are missing out. Definitely one of the best comic books in the entire industry. And those are our indie comic book recommendations this week. Moving over to Marvel Comics, because I got a couple of these bad boys. Aliens versus Avengers number 4. Jonathan Hickman writing, Asad Ribic on art. It's not even a monthly book. It almost became quarterly there at the end. But whenever it would come out, it was always an enormous highlight. I definitely recommend anybody that didn't read Aliens versus Avengers to go and sign up for the trade paperback. It should be coming out in the not too distant future because this is the end of the road. And what a fantastic ride it's been. I don't normally equate Jonathan Hickman for awesome fan service and doing things that are almost strictly there to make you smile and be like, yes, that's what I wanted to see with an Alien versus Avengers comic book. And when he finally gets his chest burster and you see what the Mr. Sinister version of an alien xenomorph looks like, it's pretty darn cool. I love the weird turn that happens once we finally get this sinister xenomorph in there. We also get to find out what happened to the Galactic Empire of Wakanda. Apparently the xenomorph invasion hit them harder than most. There's very few of them left, but they show up on Mars to try and save the day and aid what's left of this ragtag group of not really Avengers anymore. It's half Avengers, really half X-Men at that point. Really cool stuff from Asad Ribic when he's showing the action and the soldiers of Wakanda like dropping out of their ships, fighting the xenomorphs. Really, really phenomenal art. I think everyone's going to love that one. And we even get a pretty cool Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel moment. You don't get many of those in comic books. I think Jonathan Hickman definitely gave her one of her best hero moments ever, as a lot of the heroes are realizing this is not going well and we might not be long for this world if we don't put up our final stand here. Pretty cool stuff once you realize that Mr. Sinister has incorporated just a little bit of mutant DNA into that Mr. Sinister xenomorph that you do see in there. And he's doing some pretty weird stuff. I absolutely love this. It exceeded every expectation that I had for it, and it's a book that I was looking forward to. I thought Jonathan Hickman on Aliens versus Avengers had the chance to be really good, and this was absolutely phenomenal. I think it's the best comic book that Marvel had been producing for the last 8, 9, 10 months, however long it's been going on there. Unfortunately, this is the end of the road, and that is definitely one of the great frustrations with Marvel Comics is almost everything that you do is very short-lived, as we talked about earlier there. Definitely check that one out, and if you didn't, sign up for the trade paperback. I think you're going to like that book a lot. Our final Marvel comic book recommendation, Weapon X-Men #5, Joe Casey writing, Chris Cross on art, was announced as an ongoing series, retroactively turned into a 5-issue miniseries, and I think Joe Casey and Chris Cross nailed the landing on this one. This has definitely been the best X-Men book produced since Tom Brevoort took over in the From the Ashes era began. It's this or Cable 11 Chrome. Shockingly, another book that was also a 5-issue miniseries and is already also complete. But this kind of brings us back to the very beginning, or at least for the second Genesis, going back to the events of Uncanny X-Men #95, right after Giant Size X-Men, the death of Thunderbird. Now he's part of the team. He's gone rogue. He's taken off, and it's up to Wolverine, Deadpool, and Chasm to kind of go through the time stream and find this guy because Cable can't go with him. And it turns out he's got a plan. He feels like he never fulfilled his promise. He's trying to go back to the very beginning where he died on the very first mission of the X-Men under Chris Claremont. And his plan is simply, once Thunderbird dies, the one in that time stream, he's going to go take his place. He's going to prove that he was always an X-Men, that he could have been part of the team, that he wasn't too hard-headed, and he's going to get the life that he wanted. Wolverine is there, thankfully, to try and talk him out of it. Deadpool and Chasm, I believe, are in NORAD, putting up with some things that happened not only in issue 95, but even in the future of X-Men, which I thought was pretty fun. You could tell that Chris Cross was having an absolute amazing time going back to the very beginning of when X-Men became a worldwide comic book phenomenon under the Chris Claremont run. This was a whole lot of fun, and I think a worthy ending for what was too short a run. This should have been an ongoing. Unfortunately, ended up being a 5-issue miniseries. As far as the Wolverine Deadpool team-ups, and we're getting a lot of those these days, I think this was easily the strongest, and I think they did a great job on that one. Tip of the cap to Joe Casey for making chicken salad out of chicken shit. Not exactly a great situation there. They wasted his title. They put out so many comic books very similar to what he was doing that it kind of got lost in the shuffle. They retroactively turned it into a miniseries, and he nailed the landing and gave you a satisfying conclusion. And once again, another example that Marvel, nothing lasts. Even if it's good, it's always very, very temporary. And I think that's an enormous problem for Marvel Comics. But definitely check out Weapon X-Men. I think that was a great series. Now, normally you would have a couple of DC Comics to recommend, but I don't think they had a great week this week. I thought the New Gods was kind of good and normally would have got recommended because the Evan Kriegel art is good, but they completely botched the Hal Jordan, John Stewart stuff in there. They got the characters completely backwards. There's this weird refugees are always welcome moment, even though these are powered people from another planet that could potentially destroy everything. And I think Ram V probably missed the mark on that one, which kind of brings down the rest of the story. It's a good book, but it's not something I'm willing to recommend this week. Kind of a miss for me. And DC had some okay stuff, but nothing really worth recommending. Unfortunately, if you appreciate videos like this, talking about all the amazing comic books out there that you should be reading, and you perhaps like something bigger than this, I have just what the doctor ordered. It's called the Hot or Not Podcast. It's exclusive to Think Critical Patreon. My good friend Jim from Weird Science and I get together every single week, and we review all the major titles from Marvel, DC, and indie comic books, tell you what's hot, what's not, and also what's in between. Hope to see you there very soon because I think you'll absolutely love that one. Link in the video description, button right here.